Press the bell icon to never miss an update from placement interviews.
My name is Viswakrit and I study at Pathway School, Gurgaon. I scored a 1550 out of 1600 on the SAT in October 2017. Even though I study in Delhi, I'm originally from Rajasthan. So there are three components of the SAT. The first is the reading paper. Now, the reading paper was especially hard for me because I found the command of evidence questions rather difficult. And even today, if I had to take the SAT again, it'll probably be my weakest spot. So to improve on it, we use the College Board official practice app, which gives you one question every day, and that's actually quite helpful as well. But in addition to that, to do well on the reading section, you just have to read. And I mean, when I say read, I mean you have to read the right kind of publications, the right kind of periodicals, the right kind of magazines. And some of these magazines are Scientific American, maybe Time, definitely The Atlantic, and perhaps the New York Times. So all four of these publications are extremely helpful in exposing you to the kind of literature that you'll see on the reading section. Of course, in the reading section, there's also one literature passage, and there's no real way you can prepare for that unless you're genuinely interested in literature. But you still need to read, because reading is the best way to learn learn about different writers' styles and the effect of things such as word choice and pathos and ethos and all those other things that you learn about. Reading is really the best way to learn about how those impact a reader. And that being said, in addition to that, the best solution is practice. And I not only practiced from the official SAT practice test, the new SAT practice test, but I actually found the practice test of the old SAT quite helpful. So I used this book, which is the official SAT study guide. As you can see, it's for the old SAT, which was discontinued in starting March 2016. So the reading passages tend to be rather similar, except for a few questions here and there. But nevertheless, they provide you with a solid base and they provide you with good practice. Now, another thing that you should do is try to understand the different types of reading questions that come. There are some command of evidence, there are word and context questions, there are inference questions, there are questions about the main idea or the central claim of the passage. So you need to try and understand all of those questions and see which type of question you find the hardest, and then practice as much of that kind. So you find your mistakes and then drill them down. And this last bit of advice applies not only for the reading section, but for pretty much each and every section on the SAT. So Jamboree helped me in many ways. Now, I've already mentioned that I didn't really have a lot of issues on the math section, but I had serious issues both on the grammar, that is the writing section, and the reading section. So my teacher at Jamboree worked really hard with me to teach me the basic grammar rules. And these were grammar rules which I knew intrinsically, but I never knew that I knew them. So even though I learned them in class 2 and I applied them whenever I wrote whenever I wrote in class, I wasn't consciously aware of them. And you need to be consciously aware of these grammar rules if you have to excel at the writing section. And that was one way in which Jamboree really helped me. Secondly, while many tuition centers including the Princeton Review, love to give their own practice tests, and their own study material, what I liked about Jamboree was that they stuck to the official material. They only gave me College Board practice tests, and even the comprehension and the writing section practice exercises that I took had been taken from official SAT sources or from Khan Academy. And as I mentioned, Khan Academy has partnered with the College Board. So in that sense, they ensured that the questions they gave me were realistic and closely reflected the questions that I would actually receive. But onto the reading section, there I really must credit my English teacher, because she taught me some really efficient and effective strategies to score well on the reading section. So another section on the SAT is the writing section, which is basically English grammar and standard punctuation and all that stuff. So the best way to prepare for this is to actually learn the grammar rules. Now, I'm really into reading. It's ironic that I still found the reading section hard, but I'm really into reading, and that kind of helped, which is why even before I officially started prepping for the SAT, I could solve quite a few of the questions in section 2, that is the writing section. But nevertheless, learning the grammar rules makes answering those questions a lot easier and a lot more objective. Like at my institute, I learned about, say, modifier rules, or say about comma rules or semicolon rules, and how different situations demand different types of punctuation and different word choice. So in that sense, the best way is to really go over the grammar rules, and just like you just like you learned basic English grammar in class 2 and class 3 and class 4, it's basically learning those same rules but in a more advanced manner and probably in a more sophisticated manner. And again, the advice on reading remains the same, because reading significantly decreases the probability of you making an error on this section. So if you read and if you're well versed with different kinds of literature, then you'll be able to understand this section a lot better and probably score much better. So the final section on the SAT is the maths section, and this section consists of actually two parts: maths no calculator and maths calculator. Now I might be a little stereotypical over here, but for Asian students, the maths section honestly shouldn't be that hard. Speaking from the perspective of an Indian student who's studying in the IB, I've taken maths HL, maths higher level, and that really made both sections of the maths part really easy for me, and that's why even before I started prepping for the SAT, I could do a lot of the maths questions anyways. What you should try to understand is particularly what topic is tested the most. Now the College Board gives a list of topics such as passport to advanced maths and arithmetic and pre-calculus, loads of other stuff as well, and that's modeled on the American syllabus. So even if you leave all that out, you need to understand that the new SAT heavily tests algebra. Algebra is extremely important, and if you have a solid foundation in algebra, you'll probably do well on the SAT maths section. That's one. And needless to say, you have to practice. There's no way you can be good at maths without practicing sufficiently. Now, my advice would be, to Asian students in particular, just concentrate as much as possible on the maths that you study in school, because that standard of maths is way higher than the standard of maths which is tested on the SAT. Now, if any of you viewers are from outside India, then again, pretty much the same advice applies. And if you're someone who perhaps is stronger in English and maybe a little weaker in maths, then again, the best thing is practice and to learn the strategies. So as I said, algebra is tested a lot. So you just need to learn the various tricks and techniques which are used to solve questions. Like to solve inequalities, you can maybe graph them, or you can use calculators, or you can just use simple algebraic manipulation. So these are just three techniques to try and solve the same problem, and you need to experiment with all these techniques and try to understand which one works best for you. And once again, practice, not only from the SAT papers, but from as many sources as you can. And in fact, if you're able to finish till grade 10 level on Khan Academy, you're probably good to go. So to be honest, on the day of the exam, I didn't really have a strategy. I'd injured myself quite badly about 3 or 4 days ago, and my mom had forced me to take the exam nevertheless. So I walked into the exam hall thinking that if I don't do well on this exam, I'm going to chop off my mom's head. And that's clearly not the best approach, that's clearly not the best way to go, but it did have one advantage. I mean, it helped reduce my anxiety, and if you're able to put your mind off things, if you're able to divert your attention from the SAT in the hours leading up to the exam, then you're likely to do much better. So that should be your main exam taking strategy, that is to relax as much as possible, because you've done your preparation and you know you're going to do well. Obviously, even the College Board publishes a leaflet on things you should do on the exam day. Have a good breakfast, get a good night's sleep, and that pretty much applies for every exam. But the thing is, you need to go into the exam hall comfortable and ready, because it's a 4-hour long exam and it's really tiring. It's about 3 hours if you don't take the essay, 4 hours if you do, and I did take the essay. So it's extremely tiring, and you need to be ready. I mean, you need to be full of energy, full of beans, and you need to be able, and you need that kind of energy to tackle the section which you probably find the hardest. So that's my biggest tip. Those two are my biggest tips to you. One, relax. And second, you need to be ready on the exam day. I mean, you can't come half asleep or you can't come completely hungry, because you need those energy boosts throughout the exam. So there were several online resources and books that I used. So Jamboree provided me with this book, which was kind of like my Bible. So it basically contained all the reading and writing exercises which had been taken from Khan Academy, and all of those exercises were skill level 4 and skill level 3. So those provided me with a lot of good practice material, and they also had this book which they provided, which had a series of maths questions, again which had been taken from the Khan Academy diagnostic tests and the practice material. Let me emphasize that this is not a promotional video for Jamboree, but that doesn't alter the fact that they really helped me, and the people here are really supportive. With regards to online resources that I use khanacademy.org, which is an excellent resource, and as I've mentioned before, I also use the College Board Daily Practice app. Now, I use this book, which I've shown you before, which is the old SAT practice book. I did not really use the new SAT study guide because I didn't really find that useful. And once I'd run out of all kinds of practice material, then I turned to the Princeton Review, and I did one practice test and in fact decided to leave it over there because I didn't think it was really helpful. And that, well, that's really an important thing which all of you prepping for the SAT should know. Never, if possible, use the Princeton Review because the practice tests are completely off. I mean, they don't even closely mirror what you get on the actual test. So books like the Princeton Review and McGraw-Hill and Kaplan's and Barron's, they've just been able to market themselves extremely well. They've been able to show that they're actually the true masters of the test, but they're not. So you have to realize that the SAT practice tests are gold. And with regards to the practice tests, I took them over an extended period of time. I finished I think I finished all 8 practice tests in the 2 months leading up to my exam. But let it be known that I really didn't use a lot of books, and I really didn't use a lot of online resources. I used the best online resources, even if they weren't a lot. And as I've already mentioned, for the maths section, the best idea is often to do as well in maths class as you can in school. Because if you're able to solve the grade 11 maths and curriculums in countries all across the world, you'll probably be able to do well on the SAT as well. So I've already mentioned a lot of tips in this video, but just to summarize, some of the most important ones are A, to relax on the day of the test. Second, to go in to the exam hall feeling comfortable and refreshed, because as I mentioned, it's a 4-hour long test, which can be pretty tiring. But more importantly, you need to prepare for this test. Just like you prepare for each and every exam in school, you need to prepare for the SAT. And maybe if you prepare for 2 or 3 days for a maths test in school and you get 100%, well, that sounds good, but that's not how it is for the SAT, because the SAT is not something that tests content. It's something that tests skills and concepts. So such skills have to be developed over long periods of time, and I in fact started preparing for the SAT immediately after my grade 10 term finished. So my term, I'm in an IB school. It finishes in March, in May the term. So June, July, August, September, and the first week of October. So I got more than 4 months to prepare, and that's on average what you should be doing. I mean, I know some tutors may express the same amount of time in terms of hours taken, and that's perfectly fine. But you need to prepare rigorously for this test. And most importantly, don't try and prepare too much in one day and then not prepare for 2 weeks. Prepare little by little each and every day. And there is this online resource which I'd like to add on, and that is Prep Scholar. So that's also a training program, and it's run by and it was designed by a Harvard graduate in collaboration with his own training center or something like that. Anyways, Prep Scholar is also a really good program, and like Jamboree, it focuses on developing the different skills and ensuring that you have achieved mastery in them. So in that, now the only disadvantage with Prep Scholar is that it's paid. So if you want to, you can obviously purchase that program, but again, it's not necessary. That being said, Prep Scholar also has a blog on which they often post some very interesting practice questions from the SAT practice test, and they provide really innovative and creative ways to solve these problems. So you might want to consider reading the blog as well, as that can A, keep you updated with all the news in the college world, and B, teach you some special techniques and tricks which will enable you to do better on the SAT. So I had my SAT prep at Jamboree. Jamboree is a training institute which specializes in standardized testing, and it's available all across India, in all the big cities across India at least, and in the UAE and in Singapore. So Jamboree was really helpful to me, particularly because of the teachers, and they're really supportive, and I was able to contact them at any time of the day, and I was even able to WhatsApp questions to them and they'd respond as quickly as they could. That being said, I'd like to single out my English teacher, whose name is Miss Shiba Madan, and she was really a support for me throughout this whole journey. And she really taught me the strategies which I needed to do well on the reading and writing section. So she definitely deserves credit. And as I said, I was relatively comfortable with the math section before I came, but that doesn't dispute the fact that the maths faculty at Jamboree were also pretty good. My teacher, he once again taught me new and different ways to do the problems. So perhaps that's how coming to Jamboree helped me with regards to the math section. I could do all the problems, but my method was sometimes rather long and perhaps not the most effective one. And Jamboree helped me find the fastest and the best method to use given the circumstances in the exam. So in that way, Jamboree really helped me, and I received a lot of support from their side, and I'm extremely grateful to them.